It's going to get ping-pong back and forth. The really interesting thing is going to be to see how many Democrats vote for a clean extension of the debt limit.
Let's open it to your questions. Who'd like to lead off? Yes.
Relevance at this stage, Mr. Massie, you addressed that this is going to be a tough vote. There's some elements of this bill that you like and don't like. The perception is that the Republicans' leadership may have settled on the strategy because there's not many cards that they have to play. We've had two major bills in the past couple of weeks that have passed with stark minorities of your conference. The Sandy bill in particular, where only 19 people who weren't directly affected by the storm or storms in general on your side voted. Is this a danger for the party if there isn't something that sits in the middle somewhere?
Yeah, and on this one, I want to actually take you a substantially a different direction. I believe actually it might be just almost the reverse of how you articulate the question. We've actually had a lot of votes and a lot of amendments over the last 2 years where we've stood up and done statements. We've run statement bills. We've stood on this. And we haven't gotten much actually to happen. So now do you start to say, here's our philosophy, here's where we are, we understand what's really going on in the debt and deficits and the destruction, but we have a bunch of debt deniers right now over in the Senate that, look, this debt devastation that's coming is coming. Do we now have an obligation to actually try to find a way to actually get a piece of legislation all the way to the president's desk where we get to start to bend the curve, something beyond a messaging bill to actually an accomplishment, and that's going to be the battle.
Chad, you asked if this is a test of the relevance of the conservatives in the conference, and I would say that it's really. Most conservatives are willing to suspend disbelief and the leadership right now that we're going to have a conservative outcome after the past 3 months. And so it's really a test of this new pact, if you will, of leadership to get to a 10-year balanced budget, to hold the CR at 974. We'll see if all those things come to pass, and I certainly hope they do, but I would submit to you it's more of a test of what the leadership's going to do than it is of the conservative element.
I would say it's a test for conservatives across America to challenge leadership and this Congress to truly embrace an idea of a balanced budget and stand behind that and also shine the light on the Senate, the fact that they're not doing their job. And so I think it's a test for all of us, not just us conservatives on the dais here, but and conservatives within our conference. I think it's a test for leadership, and I think it's a test for conservatives across America to really, I guess, rally behind something and support something that seems to have reform efforts to it, and that is a pathway to a 10-year balanced budget.
I think there's been too much waiting on the part of Republicans, waiting for Republicans to control the Senate, waiting for Republicans to control the White House, and there hasn't been enough persuading of the American people. And it's very difficult to move a conservative agenda if the public is not behind you. And right now, I think our messaging has not been very strong, and the public is not behind us. And that's a real problem for our party.
I had a couple comments of a follow-up as well. First on the political reality, and we've had in the last few months, certainly the Hastert rule hasn't applied. And if this passes tomorrow, the Boehner rule would not apply any longer. It's, a dollar for dollar cuts in the debt ceiling. And those are a couple things that have guided Republicans in the last 2 years or the last decade. And that for me. But I think it's not Republicans that are looking for relevance. I think it's Washington as a whole looking for relevance. We're running $1 trillion deficits, and for would be the 5th straight year. S&P has downgraded us. Moody's and Fitch have sent their downgrade possibilities, has sent the notice. And we're still acting as if it's still 1995 or 2000 $1 trillion deficits. But I hope it's not the case. But if in the meantime of all these games as we move around the messaging and trying to figure out resequencing and everything, if Moody's comes in and follows through with their threat, which says, you know what, America is not a AAA credit rating agent, worthy of AAA credit rating. I mean, that's the serious reality. So you have the political reality, then you have the economic reality. I hope that doesn't happen, but I don't know how long we can continue to go on. I don't think we have 10 years to actually somehow find a path to balance. I think we need to move more quickly. But originally I was asked the question, I think, Rob, is there a 10-year balance budget proposal in there? And I don't know the answer to that. I'm not for sure. We don't have the numbers from the CBO, but I think our leadership has to have committed to that. There was different answers from different leaders, both privately and publicly. And so I think they have to hold to a 10-year balanced budget. But if you want to balance in 10 years, you don't start at 10, you start at 7. You know, and you got to negotiate with a president who never wants to balance the budget. But last year's proposal was 26 years was the balanced budget proposal from the Republicans. The RC was 7. The president's was never. How are we going to get to 10? That's a huge movement on the Republican side as well. But it has to be done. It actually has to be. I think we need to be looking at the RC budget of 7 to 8 years if we're actually serious about going to conference with the Senate and actually going through the budget process if we want to end up at 10 years. But there are some big changes to the Paul Ryan budget plan to get to 10 years. And that will come on the Medicare side. And that will be a big, tough change on the House side.
We'll go here in a moment, but we did have an online question come in asking why a couple of you referenced these private conversations you've had about a 10-year balance. Why haven't those been public pronouncements that have come out?
Well, I actually think they have been somewhat public, and they're going to become much more public. And there's more to this. It's also that 974 number that is statute that will continue to stay. Look, in this actually somewhat comes back to your question. Relevance right now may also be for those in influence, you know, those with the power in our leadership, when they look members like myself in the eyes and say, here's where this goes. We're going to have the Budget Committee produce a 10-year to balanced budget. We are going to stand behind those dollar amounts that are in the sequestration legislation. We're going to hold firm. In many ways, in 90 days, this is going to be the ultimate test of the relevancy of those we entrust with those leadership positions. And I believe they would be held to pay if they squander this.
Yes, sir.
Other than Mr. Huelskamp or any other people on the panel, we know or no on that bill, and also on the budget conversations, are there other assurances like repeal Obamacare and so forth that you're looking for or have gotten on the budget? Anyone else know or we know on that?
I'm a lean no, and I'm a lean no on everything until I'm persuaded to vote yes. I think that's the responsible thing to do as a legislator. You should always start at no and be persuaded to vote yes. And I'm not persuaded yet, but I'm open-minded.
I am trying to get to yes, but I am not there. I can't get to yes on this. And again, I'm going to vote on principle, and I understand the principle of the next 3 months, but I believe that every vote you take should stand on principle. I'm having a hard time with the principles of this first vote standing on its own.
And I'm probably, over the weekend, a lean yes, but I'm probably sliding back to more undecided lean no because of we've got the text of the bill over the weekend. We start asking some questions. After you read the text, there are some questions that have come to mind, and if I get those answered appropriately, which I hope to do by this afternoon at our conference meeting, it could change my mind, but I'm probably just undecided at this point.
Part of the question was what other assurances, and certainly the 10-year plan was referenced. And as a reference earlier, I'd like to be at 10 years, and so you can't start at 10 if you want to end up at 10. Secondly, though, budget is essentially a messaging document. And if the House is going to be serious about a 10-year plan, it's time we bring a tax bill to the floor. And I think it would have really helped us in the election if we'd actually run a tax bill on the floor and actually